Dreamers, a federal judge blocking President Trump's plan to roll back the Obama-era program. Well, it comes just hours after the president gave two cameras unprecedented access to negotiations on immigration.
Truly, it should be a bill of love, and we can do that.
Is there any agreement without the wall?
No, there wouldn't be.
So where do we go from here? What is possibly going to happen today, Griff? That really was amazing and unprecedented to watch yesterday.
Unbelievable and nearly hour-long pool spray. But first, that breaking news, Heather. Last night, that federal judge in San Francisco temporarily blocking the administration's decision to end the DACA program in March. That's what they were meeting about in the first place. This ruling allows DACA to remain in place while legal challenges to it can play out. And of course, President Trump leading that extraordinary bipartisan meeting of lawmakers at the White House negotiating over DACA ahead of next week's January 19th spending bill deadline. We got that rare glimpse of the president working and really working for compromise.
I think there needs to be a willingness on both sides. What about a clean DACA bill now, with a commitment that we go into a comprehensive immigration reform procedure?
We're going to come out with DACA. We're going to do DACA, and then we can start immediately on the phase 2, which would be comprehensive.
Now, Republicans in the room dialed the president back a bit and pressed harder for border security and the wall as any part of an initial deal. What emerged were 4 key issues in what will likely be phase 1 of the immigration deal: DACA, border security, changes to change migration, and ending the visa lottery system. The president expressing confidence in the lawmakers that they're going to get it done.
There should be no reason for us not to get this done. I will be signing it. I'm not going to say, oh, gee, I want this or I want that. I'll be signing it because I have a lot of confidence in the people in this room that you're going to come out with something really good.
After the meeting, Heather, the president tweeting a reminder that any part of a DACA deal must include the wall, lest anyone wasn't fully comprehending that when that extraordinary meeting took place. But it was rare that we got to see things really be negotiated, and lawmakers who both sides appeared to be committed to trying to find a way to make it happen. As it relates to that ruling, just a final note, the Department of Justice spokesman actually telling the Associated Press that they're going to continue to fight it. We're reaching out to get more on it for you later this morning.
I mean, you know, while they're negotiating it, you do that. It just doesn't make any sense. And a lot of questions as to what's going to happen moving forward. But negotiations have just begun, right? Thank you so much, Griff. Well, while lawmakers were trying to hammer out this deal on live TV, Mike McCall, chairman of the House Committee on Homeland Security, was on the Hill listening to firsthand accounts from border agents. Well, he's praising President Trump's tactics and says that it's clear border security is the #1 priority.
It was unprecedented. We had a bipartisan, bicameral discussion, substantive, in the White House. It was carried on live national TV for almost an hour. I don't think that's ever happened before. It shows the transparency. And what I really admired about the president, he was like the CEO at the boardroom, and he was working both sides of the aisle, trying to get to a consensus, to work out an agreement on this very, very difficult issue. Yeah. And I give him a tremendous credit for what he did. What we want to avoid is if we do create a legislative fix to DACA, we want the border secure, we want interior enforcement so that we don't have to deal with another DACA situation, say 5 years down the road. One of the mistakes in 1986 with Reagan, they granted amnesty, but they failed to do the enforcement piece. We don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past.
Well, according to the Congressional Budget Office, the current proposal for keeping Dreamers in the U.S. would cost $26 billion. That estimate nearly $10 billion more than the projected price tag for President Trump's border wall that we've told you about. So, well, enough is enough. President Trump's attorney comes out swinging, filing defamation lawsuits. This is the other big story today over the fake dossier that helped kick-start the FBI Russian probe. Now, the legal action on the heels of bombshell testimony that was just released showing the information in that bogus report actually came perhaps from a Trump campaign insider. Todd Pirro is joining us now live to break down all of those developments. This was another remarkable and unprecedented thing yesterday when Feinstein released this.
Yeah, it was like boom, boom throughout the course of the day. Two big things, Fusion GPS and BuzzFeed, both in the crosshairs of Michael Cohen this morning, Donald Trump's personal attorney, claiming in lawsuits that the infamous dossier of salacious but unconfirmed allegations of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russian agents compiled by Fusion and later published by BuzzFeed contained, quote, false and defamatory allegations that resulted in harm to the president's personal and professional reputation, current business interests, and the impairment of business opportunities. Now, this coming just hours after Dianne Feinstein, the Senate Judiciary Committee ranking member, released the transcript of Fusion co-founder Glenn Simpson's interview with committee investigators. Among the bombshell claims that the FBI had an internal Trump campaign source that corroborated parts of the dossier, and this comment from Simpson's attorney, quote, somebody's already been killed as a result of the publication of this dossier, and no harm should come to anybody related to this honest work.
This is the main reason why we don't want classified information in the hands of enemy states and even our allies. We want to keep that very guarded. So that could certainly be true. There could certainly be people or assets or areas that are compromised now because of those potential access to her server. And even with the dossier right now, look, there were a lot of bad players in Russia, a lot of bad players out there. So people could be killed for many reasons when things like this happen. So, but we don't even know what we're hearing here is factual.
A spokesman for Senate Judiciary Committee Chair Chuck Grassley blasted Feinstein, saying her release of the transcript undermines the integrity of the committee's oversight work and jeopardizes its ability to secure candid, voluntary testimony.
Yeah, I mean, it was unbelievable during an investigation that's ongoing.
We're not done with this investigation by any stretch of the imagination.
Unfortunately, for a lot of people, we'll say unfortunately. Thank you so much, Todd. Appreciate it. Well, it is still unclear who supposedly verified the information compiled in the dossier. And despite Glenn Simpson's claims that there was a mole in the Trump campaign, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett says that this is textbook defamation.
It's a legitimate defamation lawsuit, a false statement, and clearly the dossier is false that damages somebody's name and reputation. Look, I went through all 311 pages of Glenn Simpson's testimony. It's pretty clear this is a guy who trades in rumor, innuendo, suggestion, and wild speculation. I think he's read too many Robert Ludlum and Tom Clancy novels. Yeah. I mean, basically the entire 311 pages is trash because this guy doesn't know anything. The dossier, he's asked as to every specific aspect of the dossier. Did you verify this? Did you verify that? And the answer is no.
13 people, though, confirmed dead at this hour. And the Supreme Court set to hear a landmark case on purging voter registrations that could have nationwide impact. An appeals court already ruling that Ohio cannot eliminate registered voters from its system, even for people who have not responded to warnings in the mail after not voting for at least 2 years. Now, the 2016 ruling restored more than 7,000 voters who had not moved. Georgia, Montana, Oklahoma, Oregon, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia also purge infrequent voters, so you should know that if you live there. The court's ruling is due at the end of June. And President Trump set to host his first foreign leader of the year today. Norwegian Prime Minister Erna Solberg will be welcomed at the White House. The two plan to discuss defense, trade, and the fight against ISIS. Now, the visit comes just days after Palestinian Authority leaders urged Norway to recognize Palestine as a state in reaction to President Trump's decision to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. And the time now is about 11 minutes after the top of the hour. The White House debating the fallout of a potential military strike on North Korea.
Any military strike against North Korean property itself, that they would unleash all of their capabilities on South Korea.
Or the risk of using force and the new plan to arm our allies. So why did Senator Dianne Feinstein, we were just talking about this, release transcripts related to the Russian dossier? Our next guest says that it's all about scoring headlines as the collusion trial goes cold for Democrats.
And I think I've wasted enough of my viewers' time. Thank you.
I should have said collusion trail. Well, you have seen Jake Tapper right here cutting off a White House advisor on live TV. But what happened after that? Well, we now know. Welcome back to Fox and Friends First. A human source from inside the Trump organization. Bombshell testimony now coming to light about the Trump dossier. But that's just one of the shocking details revealed by Fusion GPS co-founder Glenn Simpson. Here to help us sort through all the latest developments is Republican strategist John Jordan. John, thank you very much, first of all, for joining us this morning.
Happy to be here, Heather.
Yes, we were just in the commercial break trying to go through this, and we were saying you actually need a roadmap to get through this at this point. In terms of Glenn Simpson and what he had to say about this source, he says the FBI believed Chris's information might be credible because they had other intelligence that indicated the same thing, and one of those pieces of intelligence was a human source from inside the Trump organization. Now, there have been some reports that he's going back and forth on this, saying that he was actually referring to the conversation that Papadopoulos had instead of an actual mole. So what is your take on all this?
Well, let's just take this apart. First of all, this is supposition built on supposition. First of all, you have what is, as a lawyer, I can tell you is double hearsay. Is Chris Steele telling Glenn Simpson that the FBI had a source, and none of this is corroborated. More to the point, the FBI closely guards the identity and information provided by confidential informants and isn't going to disclose it, and sure as heck isn't going to disclose it to a potential witness or somebody else they're interviewing. So that's really problematic. And the second part, with regard to the murder, because this whole deal has everything in it, right?
Yeah, and as you're talking about that, let's bring up what Simpson's lawyer had to say. Since you're talking about this possible or this alleged murder, he said somebody's already been killed as a result of the publication of the dossier, and no harm should come to anybody related to this honest work. And there's that statement. So go on.
Well, first of all, it's early in the morning and law school is a long time in my past. But as I recall, to sustain a charge of murder, you actually have to have a murder victim. And there doesn't appear to be one here. So that's troubling. But there's an enormous unreported story here, and that is the source why this was disclosed to begin with. And somebody who lives in California, anybody knows that Senator Feinstein's up for re-election this next time. And unlike other states, California is not a state where it's automatically Republican versus Democrat. It's top two vote getters. And the other vote getter in this case is almost certainly going to be State Senator Kevin De Leon, who is beloved by the progressives, is Hispanic, is Spanish speaking. And here you have Senator Feinstein, who, God bless her, she is the oldest living member. She is the oldest member of the Senate. She's very comfortable in D.C. And she is annoyed of the progressives in California. And the progressives in California aren't just a piece of the electorate. They are the electorate.
Yeah.
So she has to mend a lot of fences there. So this is just a freebie to try to get some headlines and to try to burnish her credentials.
Yeah, all political for her to do this, even though she says she did this for the American people and that the American people deserve the opportunity to see what he said, in fact, Simpson, and judge for themselves, and that, as some of what you're saying, the innuendo and the misinformation that's circulating about the transcript, that they're part of a deeply troubling effort to undermine the investigation. But her releasing this testimony, could that not in itself undermine the investigation?
Well, of course it could. Of course it could. This stuff is straight from Woody Woodpecker. I mean, you have murders without murder victims. I didn't think such a thing was possible. But here's another piece of this unreported story, and I'm surprised it's gone on this long, is that this is going to be the general election in California by Senator De Leon and Senator Feinstein is going to be massively expensive. It is going to draw enormous resources from progressive causes from around the country within California. It's going to sop up money that the Democrats, I think, nationally think are going to be spent in other states, but California is going to eat up this is going to be a battle royale, and it's going to chew up an enormous amount of money.
Yeah, well, we had Chuck Grassley saying that Feinstein's actions were confounding, to say the very least. John, thank you so much for joining us. By the way, what isn't expensive in California these days, right? John, thank you.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. Have a great day. Appreciate it. Well, the time now is about 19 minutes, almost 20 minutes after the top of the hour. And if you were caught in the middle of a mass shooting, would you know what to do? A controversial new tool aimed at helping teachers and first responders prevent the next tragedy. And convicted traitor Chelsea Manning slamming our men and women in blue on Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. The outrage now taking social media by storm, and Carly Shimkus is here with that up next. Welcome back. Convicted traitor Chelsea Manning blasting our men and women in blue on Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. Now, Carly Shimkus with Fox News headlines 24/7 Sirius XM 115 is here with reaction to the disgusting disrespect and what was said.
Well, like you said, Heather, yesterday was Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, and Chelsea Manning marked it by attacking police officers, tweeting, "F the police." Now, in a separate tweet, she explained her anti-police sentiment, saying she believes that law enforcement officers have killed hundreds of people unlawfully each year. Well, this message sparked a string of backlash. Mary called the move disgusting. Another Twitter user says most of the time people don't like the police because they have committed a crime, kind of like you. And Vince on Twitter said clearly people will do anything, and I mean anything, for attention. So Chelsea Manning received 35 years in prison for releasing over 700,000 government documents to WikiLeaks. So,
all right, so let's move on to what happened after the fact. We heard about this that happened yesterday between Jake Tapper and Stephen Miller.
That's right.
It was recorded what happened after they were on camera, right?
Yeah, and for those that don't know, CNN's Jake Tapper and White House advisor Stephen Miller got into a heated exchange on Sunday, but we recently learned that heated commentary continued during the commercial break. First, let's listen to some of that on-camera conversation.
There's one viewer that you care about right now, and you're being obsequious. You're being a factotum in order to please him, okay? And I think I've wasted enough of my viewers' time. Thank you.
Well, Fox News has obtained a transcript of their conversation during the commercial break. I'm paraphrasing here, but you can see some of these quotes on camera. Miller told Tapper he should be ashamed of himself. Tapper shot back, saying, "This is why they don't put you on TV," adding, "Don't act all offended," to which Miller said, "I am offended. I'm offended by you and your network." Well, President Trump responded shortly after that conversation, that on-camera conversation took place, saying Jake Tapper of fake news CNN just got destroyed in his interview with Stephen Miller of the Trump administration. Watch the hatred and unfairness of this CNN flunky. So there you have it.
So that tweet was from Sunday?
That tweet was from Sunday,
from
yes.
Sunday. Okay. Well, so there's a poll that shows that fans are intentionally stopping watching the NFL.
Yeah, that's right. Let's just go straight to that poll. So this was a poll of about 2,000 people who say that they stopped watching the NFL this season, and they explained why. 46% said some other reason. 32% said they chose to stop watching games in support of Donald Trump. 22% said in solidarity of players kneeling. There are other reasons why, as you can see, and those numbers total more than 100 because people who were polled were allowed to choose more than one option. But pretty insightful there.
All right. Thank you so much, Carly Shimkus, joining us live. We appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Well, the president's art of the deal on full display on live TV.
We need a wall. It has to be a bill to end chain migration, cancel the lottery program. Those three things are paramount.
Both parties agreeing on some key issues, but the wall's still up in the air. So will Democrats really keep resisting? We'll debate it. And Colin Kaepernick kneeling beside Martin Luther King Jr. on the cover of a major magazine. Is this really the dream Dr. King talked about? We are back with a Fox News alert for you. The U.S. just agreed to sell millions of dollars worth of missiles to Japan as threats from North Korea intensify. Well, the Trump administration now said to be considering a targeted strike on the rogue regime. Now, Kelly Wright is live in our nation's capital. What exactly that means, it certainly sounds scary. Kelly?
Heather, good morning to you as well. Numerous published reports indicate the Trump administration is considering conducting a deterrent strike against North Korea in the event of the Hermit Kingdom conducting another missile launch. Now, what that means is there's an article in the Wall Street Journal reporting the Trump administration would use a so-called bloody nose strategy against the North if it conducted another missile launch. The U.S. response would involve conducting a targeted, limited military strike on a facility in North Korea. Army General retired Jack Keane says the action would be risky.
Any military strike against North Korean property itself, not necessarily a missile that's off the mainland, but anything on the mainland itself, North Korea has committed itself that they would look at that as an act of provocation of war. And as a result of that, they would unleash all of their capabilities on South Korea. These are complicated, difficult issues.
Reports of this strategy comes a day after talks between North and South Korea about next month's Winter Olympics. The North agreed to send athletes to compete in the Games. South Korea's President Moon says President Trump deserves big credit for bringing the first inter-Korean talks in 2 years by applying pressure on Kim. Moon now hopes to have a summit with Kim to resolve the nuclear standoff.
Certainly the next steps would be denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula is our #1 priority, and certainly what we would like to see. We are in very close contacts with our South Korean allies about these conversations.
And General King, getting back to him, he adds he believes tough UN sanctions are having some impact on the North as well. But he warns the U.S. must keep a very close eye on North Korea, which the president agrees with. And that's what he's doing and being tough with Kim Jong-un. The regime has used negotiations in the past to gain more time to advance its nuclear program. And that is something the United States will no longer tolerate.
All right. Certainly something we should all keep our eye on. Kelly Bright live for us. Thank you, Kelly.
Sure.
Well, back at home, a win overnight for DACA dreamers. For now, anyway, a federal judge temporarily blocking the Trump administration's effort to end the Obama-era program, which protects illegal immigrants who came into the U.S. as children. Now, the bombshell ruling coming after President Trump hosted a groundbreaking bipartisan meeting. This was remarkable to hammer out a deal on DACA and border security.
There should be no reason for us not to get this done. I will be signing it. I'm not going to say, oh, gee, I want this or I want that. I'll be signing it because I have a lot of confidence in the people in this room that you're going to come out with something really good.
Well, the latest ruling allows those protected to remain in the U.S. while lawsuits against the decision play out. And CNN slammed at the White House press briefing. A press secretary, Sara Sanders, taking on CNN's Jim Acosta, who repeatedly pressed her about whether Democrats will support the wall. Sanders then snapped back. Listen.
And that's part of the negotiation that we expect Congress to have.
But you understand Democrats are saying that they may not be in favor of this kind of deal. That they're not
if Democrats aren't in favor of protecting American citizens, then I think we've hit a sad day in American history, but I don't believe that to be the case because as we heard many of them say as they sat around that table when several of you were in the room, they are committed to border security. They do want it, and most of them have voted for it previously before this legislation hit the floor. So anything different is just...
wall. If they say thanks but no thanks for a wall.
Jim, I'm not negotiating with you. I'm going to let Congress take care of that.
Well, Sanders pointing out that Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and Chuck Schumer all voted for a border wall as senators in 2006. So the question is, where do we go from here? Here to debate is GOP strategist Jen Kearns, a Democratic strategist Chuck Rocha. Thank you both for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning.
Thank you. So let's talk about what transpired in this meeting first. Let's begin there. What did you think about it, Chuck? I mean, it really was remarkable to see, several people said yesterday, how the sausage gets made.
Well, it was funny and not funny all at the same time because I was afraid they were using these young, amazing dreamers as a political football. If they really want to get something done, and this should really be easy, all 800,000 of these young people have had criminal background checks. They're serving in our military. They're teaching our children in public schools this morning. This should be something that should be easily done. So long as we're not using them as a political ploy, I think there's two separate issues, the wall and overall immigration reform, and then the DACA issue. And there's bipartisan support. So we should get that done. Let's debate the border wall and border security and then get this thing out because these young people's lives are in peril.
Yeah, and that's what they're talking about doing at this point, Jen. 2 phases, and then 4 of those key issues in phase 1 of the deal would be DACA, border security, changes to chain immigration, and then ending the visa lottery system. But what I found interesting yesterday in this press briefing is that Sara Sanders was very specific, Jen, in saying border security. No longer saying the wall. Did that mean anything to you?
Well, look, President Trump has made it very clear from the beginning that border security to him means a wall. In some places, it might mean a fence. In other places, it might be more of a high-tech operation. So I think the base of the GOP feels quite comfortable with that.
I don't know about that. There's some people on the base that are very upset. I mean, Ann Coulter being one of them. She's very not happy with the president right now, saying that he's not keeping his promises and that he's reneging on the wall.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think Ann Coulter has been a bit of an outlier in this. I know she's very passionate about the wall. This was her #1 issue in the 2016 campaign. But I think the base, by and large, is pretty happy with President Trump. I thought it was fascinating yesterday to really see the king of the art of the deal in action. I think this was a very positive win for President Trump yesterday and the GOP. He was really forcing the Democrats' hand here to sit down and negotiate with full transparency and accountability. And he was right to do so. Let's remember, it was Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer who actually tricked President Trump last fall when they came out of this dinner with him and said that they had reached a deal on DACA. And I think President Trump was right not to allow that to happen.
From that.
Again.
He definitely learned from that, Chuck, and he said, okay, well, then we're going to put you on camera this time. This is something that President Trump he tweeted out yesterday, thanking all of those lawmakers. Chuck, he said, thanks to all of the Republican and the Democratic lawmakers for today's very productive meeting on immigration reform. There was strong agreement to negotiate a bill that deals with border security, chain immigration, lottery, and DACA. And I found it very interesting, Chuck, the completely different takes on that meeting yesterday, because, I thought that President Trump seemed to know what he was talking about and that he did a very good job in terms of negotiating through everything that they were talking about. But then other people, as you would imagine, on the far left, they were saying that this just proved what the Fire and Fury book had to say about him.
Well, imagine that. We are going to have a little political rhetoric here in Washington, D.C. To your point, back in 2013, we passed a comprehensive immigration reform bill through the Senate that had a lot of, I think it was $60 million worth of border security that could not get through a Republican House. There's so much infighting amongst the Republicans, from the base to the moderates, to that's where the real hiccup is here. I think Democrats will go along with what's the right thing to do and make sure that we protect the DACA kids. But I think that the fight within the Republican Party is something to stay tuned to.
Yeah, definitely. Jen, final word.
Well, I think the real fly in the ointment here is Democrats. 26 Democrats in the U.S. Senate voted for a border wall in 2006. 64 Democrats in the House voted for it. If it was good enough for the Democrats then, it should be good enough for President Trump. And I think Chuck's party is at a real risk here heading into the 2018 midterms. They're going to continue to resist and obstruct this president on something that they voted for 10 years ago. Looks silly.
Well, we will see what happens. Thank you both very much for joining us. Chuck, always love having you here, you and your hats. And Jen, thank you very much, too. See you later. Thanks. Well, the mainstream media melted down over claims about the president's mental health.
It raises serious questions about his mental capacity, his ability to process information, his impulse control.
If this book is to be believed, and I think it is credible, then it is actually quite frightening for the American people.
With the proposal from one Democrat to make that narrative a federal law and one step closer to the apocalypse, that's what newspaper editor has to say about a third gender option on driver's licenses. Welcome back to Fox and Friends First. House Democrat Brendan Boyle introducing the Stable Genius Act in an effort to make medical exams mandatory for presidential candidates. So the bill would allow exams to be conducted by the Navy with the results available to the public. Well, the inspiration for the name coming from one of President Trump's tweets debunking false claims about his mental intelligence written in the book Fire and Fury. The bill is unlikely to advance. And a Democratic lawmaker taking a page out of Hollywood's playbook, California Congresswoman Jackie Speier is calling on her female coworkers to wear black to President Trump's first State of the Union address. The move meant to show support for the anti-sexual harassment Me Too and Time's Up movement. And it comes, of course, after several lawmakers, including Al Franken and John Conyers, were forced to step down over misconduct accusations. How about some business headlines now? Apple making some changes following fierce criticism over smartphone screen addiction among children. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. Tracy Crosco from our sister network, Fox Business, here with the update. Good morning, Tracy.
Good morning, Heather. Yes, this comes after two big investors in Apple called on the company to make some changes in terms of controls that parents can use for youth iPhone addiction and to help limit that. So Apple did say that they're going to be making some new enhancements to make what they already offer a little more robust. Apple says that it has had parental controls in place, some of them since 2008. And in part of a statement, it said, "We lead the industry by offering intuitive parental controls built right into the operating system." So they are going to be adding to that what's already there.
All right. So Amazon Alexa is coming to Toyota cars and self-driving pizza trucks as well. What is this?
Yeah, so this is coming out of the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. There's the Pizza Hut and Toyota self-driving vehicle that will be tested by 2020, and it looks like an oven almost, which you might be able to cook that pizza inside. And the other thing that Amazon Alexa, the voice will be added to some Toyota cars and Lexus in 2018, 2019. So you'll be able to get directions, pick some entertainment, music selections, order things, add them to your shopping cart. So that'll be great, I think.
Yeah, well, something else that would be great. Dunkin' Donuts doubling the number of stores. They want to anyway. That'd be great.
Yeah, so right now they have about 9,000. They want to increase that number to 18,000, which to compare, Starbucks